Good morning, everybody. Today we're going to start working on lesson 5. I may or may not complete it today. As you may have noted on my weekly syllabus that we're working on lesson 5 today and tomorrow. We've kind of pushed and done a total of 5 lessons in 2 weeks, and remaining 4 weeks, we have 9 more lessons to do. So it's a little more than 2 lessons a week. So we're going to slow down the pace just a little bit so that you can focus on doing the assignments as well as the lessons. Anyway, again, today we're working on lesson 5, which involves transforming artwork. As you can see on the finished version of this lesson, we're working with artboards. There are, in fact, 3 artboards. So this takes up a large part of the lesson, learning how to utilize artboards and understanding how they can work for you. They're basically 3 separate documents contained in one file. If it's a brochure that you're wanting to design and will need to print, or maybe it's 2-sided or it's a gatefold or something like that, rather than having to generate separate files for it, you can do it all in one file, but just generating separate artboards. So that's one of the things that we'll do. Some of the other things that we're going to do is we're going to introduce at the very end puppet warp, which is kind of cool. I think it's a little bit stronger in Adobe Photoshop. Various ways of rotating, skewing, duplicating files, changing scale, that sort of thing. And so that's what we're going to focus on today. Okay. So this is as I said, this is the end file. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to switch to the start file here. I've already renamed, and I'm going to go ahead and zoom out just a little bit so you can see everything that's included in here. So they start out with one artboard. We have the artwork here that will be incorporated in some of the other artboards that we'll be working with. So that's one of the first things that they want us to do, is to generate a couple of new artboards. It's really pretty simple. What I would do is I would simply select the artboard tool. It shifts, and you can see that because we only have one artboard selected, that we can edit it if we wish, or we can come in here and we can generate new ones. Just to let you know that any artwork that you have that is not on an artboard will not be printed. It's sort of it's artwork, it's art elements of your project that are set aside. It's just like organizing them on your desk, but it's not on the finished product itself. So my artboards tend to be very messy, not terribly organized. But anyway, how to create a new artboard. You'll notice that I have smart guides turned on, the little pink line, because I want to make sure that it's aligned with the current artboard. And if I click and I drag, I'm creating a brand new one. And I'm not going to worry about the size, because what I need to do is over to the right under transform, under width and height, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to create in pixels my new artboard. So to a specific dimension. And the dimension that they want is 648 pixels, 648. Make sure that it is not linked, the proportions aren't linked, and hit the tab key. And then for the next dimension, the same thing. So it'll be a square, 648. Boom. So I have my square here. Now, if I want to make a duplicate of that, all I need to do is create the new artboard here. And based on that existing one that I just created, it duplicates it, which is really kind of nice. Okay. Now you can also move artboards around. I don't generally feel the necessity to do that, but I can do that. And if I hold down the shift key, it aligns it like so. And you can move them around. And then what we're going to do is we're going to eliminate some, and we're going to copy elements from one to another. Okay. So for example, one of the things that I might want to do is let's take this initial artboard that they provided for us. We want to resize it. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to click and I'm going to move it up to the bottom until it hits 648. So all three have the same height. I can also go back over here. Let's make sure that it's aligned the way that I had planned, and it's not. So as I move it down, there we go. And I'll move that across like so. It's not working. So I'll just nudge it. Now, one of the things that I can do, and very soon we'll get to work with rulers, but one of the things that I probably want to do is under view, I probably have snap to glyph, and I'm going to turn that off, and maybe that will help a little bit. So there we go. So that's a little bit better. Okay, if I need to nudge it up a little bit, or what I can also do is I can set the pixels. You can see that if I select rulers, let's do that. I can go ahead and I can hit Command R to bring rulers up. Okay, and with this artboard selected, it should automatically select 0 from the top. So if I come up here and I go to the top, you'll notice that I have a Y of -3 pixels. Well, if I go ahead and I click in here and I just select 0, it will move it down. Okay, so it's exactly aligned with the other one. Now, when I click off of it onto the direct selection tool, then what I have here is artwork that I can draw on now. If I go back with the artboard tool, I'll take this one for the time being, and I'm going to delete it because we're going to use some existing artboards already. So what I want to do now, okay, I can click off, or I'll just leave this here. But what I want to do is I want to go to another piece of artwork that they provided for us and make sure that I am in the artboard mode. And I want to copy all of this and bring it over. Now, when I copy it, notice that they have artwork over here to the right. It will not take that artwork. It will only take the artwork that's on the board. So if I go to edit and I copy, make sure that I just copy the artboard, and I go back to my working file here, and I go ahead and with the artboard selected and I hit Command V for paste, notice that it added that, which is really kind of nice. Okay. So it took the artwork and the artboard and added it to my current document. So that's all there is to that. So what I want to do now is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to take this one, and I moved it in place here. But I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to change the settings for the artboards, because what I want to do is align them and make sure that they're evenly spaced. Normally, for myself, it's not a big deal because I generally work for myself. But if you're working in a group, if you're working with other artists, then maybe what you need to do is have a little bit more professional, polished appearance. So one of the things that I can do is with artboards selected here, we can go ahead and we can, we want to rearrange all, or if I go with artboard options here, okay, we can see that I have artboard 13 here selected. I also, if I want to say show center mark, if I want to say show crosshairs, there's a whole variety of things. I can change the size from here. Another thing that I can do, I'm going to go ahead and click OK, is that I can rearrange all of them. And when I click that, so what I want to do is I want to really not change the order of it. If I want them in a grid by row, if I want them a grid by column, or if I just want to arrange them in a single row like I've done here, and that's what I need to do. So then I can also determine the spacing here. So it says 3 artboards, and they want this to be just, let's see how many pixels they want this to be apart. It's not much, it's just 40 pixels. So a little bit more than what we have here by default. So I'll make it 40 pixels. And I'm going to go ahead and click OK. So move artwork with Artboard, that's kind of important too. And you'll notice that they should be all evenly spaced now. And they're not. So something happened here. Let me undo this. Let's do this again. I'm going to go ahead and select this artboard instead. And I'm going to do that again. I'm going to say rearrange all. And I'm going to select 40. And it moved the artwork, but it didn't move it moved the board, but it didn't move the artwork. So there's something glitchy here that I'm not doing right. What I should do then, let's go ahead and let's select all of these. Let's try that instead. By holding down the shift key, arrange, try arrange again. And I'll go ahead and I'll click OK. And it's not working. I don't know why. Okay, well, I'm going to click out of this. And I'm not going to worry about it because it's really not a big deal. Let's go back again, but I will try to get them, pretty much close to being organized and have approximately the same distance between them. But for myself, it's kind of a non-issue, not really that important. Okay, so there we go. So there are some options for us. Probably one of the next things that we should do is that we should also go ahead and rename some of these. So if I go ahead and I look, and if I look right here, this is the Artboard panel right here. We have Artboard 13 selected. If I select the first one, okay, if I double click on it, I can rename that. That's this one. And so they want this one to be main infographic. So that's what I'm going to do, main infographic. And the next one is going to be what do we have here? We have bike stats, and we also have commute. That's what this one is going to be. Can't spell. There we go. And if you wish to rearrange the order of them, we can. They are really in the correct order now. We have infographics here first. We have commute second, and we have bike statistics third. But you can always click on them. And if I click here and move it down, now it's the third artboard. To me, it's kind of 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. It really is not that important. Okay, but that's how you can reorder them, rename them, and you're kind of set to go. Okay, so the next thing that we want to do is we want to learn how to work with rulers and guides with the artboards. You'll notice that I already have rulers up here. Another place that you can bring rulers up is right here in our properties panel. That if I click here, that turns rulers off. If I click here, it turns rulers back on. If I wish to see a grid, I can also do that. If I want to see transparency, I can do that instead of the white background. So those are some other options. So I'm going to leave the rulers up, and I'm going to show you how to work with guides. One of the things that you should note is that the starting point for the rulers, you'll notice over to the left, because we have rulers along the left and along the top, that the 0 is at the left edge of the first artboard. Okay. If we were to select the second artboard, notice that the position of the rulers changes. Now 0 is at the left edge of the center artboard. And you'll notice that the top of each will remain the same. We can also readjust that if we wish. We can click here and we can drag, we can move. Maybe we want the 0, 0 to be down here instead. Okay, so now note, over to the left, 0 is down here. And up here along the left, we have 0. And when I click on the center artboard, it shifts. 0 is over here to the left, and 0 should be, it's along the top. It only changed for the one that I changed over here. So it only manipulated the one, not all of them. If I ever want to reset that, I can. So if I double click on this little area up here, it resets it back to the original setting, the 0 up here and 0 over here. Now, to bring out guidelines, what they want us to do is I'm going to click here and I'm going to drag and I'm going to come down to 400 pixels. Okay. And if it's not quite 400 pixels, then we can always look at the properties. So let's look at the art over here. And I don't want to see the artboards for the properties, or the properties for the artboards. I want to see see it for the guideline that we've created. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to select guides here. And that will allow me to show guides or hide guides. Guidelines can also be deleted. Now, what I need to do, by default, guidelines oftentimes are locked. So I'm going to come up here and I'm going to look at the last one that I created here. Make sure that it's selected. And what I want to do, and it is by default locked, is that I can go to object, and I can go to guides, and I can unlock them all. So let's go to object and unlock all. Okay, let me undo that. Let me undo that because I just want to unlock guides. So I'm going to go to view instead. I have smart guides turned on. I have guides down here. And I want to unlock guides because that by default they are selected, they're guide, they're locked. Now I can go ahead with the selection tool and I can select it. And it should be highlighted. And now again, if I have the height of this, let's make sure that it is selected. I want to make sure that it's 400 pixels down from the top of the artboard. So there we go. It's moving, but it's not moving very smoothly. So I'm just going to use with smart guides the lower right-hand corner here. And we can see from the top it is, we have 87 pixels. So there we go. So it's moved down. I can deselect now, and it's locked in. Now I can go ahead and I can take the artwork from here and move it down. And by default, it should snap to the guide. Okay. And I think I messed up here a little bit. It needs to be a little bit lower. So we're just going to go down here a little bit. And I'll move it down, hold down the shift key, move it into position, have it snap to the guide. And then if you want, and you want to hide the guides, then it's easy enough to do. You can either turn it off from here, like so, turn it back on, or because it is, guides do fall under a different category, I can go to view, and then I can come down to guides. Okay. Where's guides, and I can say hide guides, and then they were temporarily hidden. If you want to delete the guides, you can. It's up to you. I find guides to be pretty helpful. Okie doke. Trying to follow all of this point, same as the book, but I know that I'm deviating it from it a little bit, and that's okay. So I moved that down. So working with a bounding box, let's see if I have the bounding box. Yeah, the bounding box is selected. You can always turn that off. One of the things that they want us to show you is that if I move this bicycle up here, that's what it's going to look like on this artboard. And if you want it printed, it has, as I said, it has to be on an artboard. So one of the things that we want to do is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to take this group and move it into position. Now, it isn't quite in position here, but I want in the upper left-hand corner, I want it to be 0, 0 pixels. And remember, you need to know where the origin is. So here's 0, 0. And if I use this little widget right here and I click in the upper left-hand corner, make sure that when I put in 0, 0, it's using this this upper left-hand corner as my reference point. So now I put in 0, and you'll notice that now it fits perfectly in there. Okay, it matches it up to like 10,000ths of an inch. Okay, so we've got that in position. That's good. Now, one of the things that we can do is we can work on scaling objects to see how that works. Again, there's a variety of ways to do that. If I select the object and I just double click on the scale tool, okay, let's come over here and let's double click on it. A little dialog box comes up and I can use uniform scaling, non-uniform scaling. I want to make sure in this instance that scale, stroke, and effects is turned on, and I can hit 200%. Boom, it gets larger. Okay. So I'm going to leave that alone. So that's one of the things, because we're going to incorporate this image in here later on. And you'll notice that it's not organized correctly. It needs to come above everything else. But again, remember from before, that's not a problem. I just have to make sure that it's selected and go to Object, Arrange, and then say Bring to Front. Now it's on top of everything else. So that's okay. But you'll notice that it's covering other elements up that need to be viewed. So I can hit Command. Let's see. I always forget. I'm going to bring up layers just to show you where it's located. That brought it to the front. So if I hit Command and then the right bracket, I can't go up anymore. But if I hit the left bracket, it goes down. And if I keep hitting it go down, it will gradually be below. There's some text underneath that I want. And there we go. There are those percentages that pop up. And again, if I need to enlarge this, I can. Just hold down the Shift key to make sure that I constrain the proportions. Okay, and I can also move it from this corner. I can also use The arrows in the lower right-hand corner of my keyboard can nudge this up pixel by pixel or left to right. Okay, so that works there. That's nice. We can also take this and we can resize this. Now, if you want to resize any of these elements or rotate them, it's not hard. Just, move it into position like so. In this case, I'm going to go ahead and resize it from the center. So I'm going to hold down the Shift and the Option key and reduce it till it gets to the size that I need it. And if that's still a little bit too large, it's snapping to zoom in just a little bit. And this will probably help me a little bit. Now I can scale it down a little bit. And instead of having an extra element, what I would have done, because if I want it to be exactly the same as the other one, actually, let me undo that. Let's do that, move it, and go back. I like making copies of existing elements. So what I would have done for myself is I would have simply selected this object. Notice that this is a part of all of these. This is part of a group. So if I double click to go inside the group, now I can select this element and there's another group inside there. So I'll double click again. But this one lies outside it. So I'm looking here to see how they've constructed theirs. So I'm going to go outside of that group. What I want to do is I'll select this group and I'm going to double click here and I'm going to go inside this group. You know what? I could have, I'm going to go ahead and put that inside it. So what I can do is if I select the group, right, and find out where that group is in my layers, and you can see that it's right here. Okay, so that's where this is. Now I can take this element and I can put it inside that group. So I just need to know where it is. So now what I can do is I can take and I can drag it inside that group. And now I put it inside there. So now it's inside the group. And I can resize it and watch what happens when I we'll go ahead and I'll resize it. And then when I come back out, and I want to deselect. And now when I click on any of these elements, notice that they all should be inside that group. And I believe it is, yeah. So it's inside the group. Okay. So this might need to be inside another subgroup. And if I want to do that, let's find out where these are. So if I select this one here, let's double click to go inside. See where that's located. So I need to click down here. Let's find out. Let's go back up here. And my layers. I'm in isolation mode. So I don't want that. Let's go back out of isolation mode. I'm having difficulty determining how they constructed this. It'd take me a little bit of work here. Because by me selecting this, everything is selected, but it looks like these elements are in another subgroup. And I can do that if I wanted to, if I twirl down here, we can see that this is in a subgroup. Let's just select one element here and see what we have. Let's select this element. And that's this one. Now let's select this one. So it is a part of the group. So I've kind of organized this a little bit differently than I would have, but it's fine. they're all grouped together now. So if I select one element, just select the whole group and I move it, notice that the little flower goes with it. That's kind of a long way around of what I'm trying to talk about here. Okay, so some other things, ways of reflecting objects, ways of duplicating them. So maybe one of the things that we want to do, and we'll look at the finished version here. So let's look at the finished version. Is that you'll see in the lower right-hand corner of the bike stats, we have an orange triangle here. Well, it's based on the green one up here. So how can we get an accurate copy of that? So what I want to do is I want to select this one. Okay, notice that it's a separate element. Okay, and I'm going to copy it and I'm going to paste it. But I'm not going to do a general paste, because if you do a general paste, it pastes it in the center of the artwork. So let me just show you. If I do copy, Command C, and then if I hit Command V, paste, notice that it puts it in the center of my artwork. I don't want that. By copying it and then going to edit, what I can do is I can have it paste in front. Okay, or paste in place. And there is a copy of it now, but it was pasted directly on top of the one that it was based on. Now I can take from my fill and I can apply orange to it. Okay. And again, this is a separate object. So if I come back here, I move it, you can see that I have a separate triangle that's layered directly on top of the preceding one. But now I want to mirror it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select the mirror tool, which is this one. And I'm going to go ahead and in the center of this, or just double click on it. Let's see what options we have here. And notice that it's doing it vertically, but I can change it at an angle. And I want it to be at a 45-degree angle. So if I hit 45, it's at the right angle and it's aligned perfectly with the other one. And it fits the artboard really nice. So it's nice to have preview turned on. It's nice to have these options where you can, I could have copied and pasted from this one too. Okay, I could have, so let's do this one another way. I'm going to go ahead and select this. And I'm going to delete it. And I'm going to select this one. And I'm going to select that I want to mirror this one. So another way of doing this would be to select, double click on the mirror tool. Notice that because I already had 45 degrees selected, it selected that. But now what I want to do is I don't want to just simply click OK, I just simply want to copy it. Okay, so now I have the duplicate here in the lower right-hand corner. And with it selected, now I can select the fill and select orange for that. And I'm good to go. Okay, so that's nice. A lot of different ways of doing that. Now, you'll also notice that they have this element right here, that if we were to look at the finished version, we want 4 of these. Okay, and we want to pivot them about this center point. So to do that, we're going to use the system that I just talked about, which works really nicely. I'm going to go ahead and use the rotation tool. And I'm going to move my cursor. Let me zoom in so you can see, all of you can see this a little bit better. And again, because I have smart guides turned on, I can tell where the center is right here. I'm going to hold down the Option key and click. Okay. So I want this to be at 30 degrees, or actually it's going to be 45 because we're doing 4 of them. And if I need to, I can put in a negative. Now, it depends on which direction you want to go. Okay, so that's at negative 45 degrees. And again, I don't want to just click OK. I want to make a copy. Okay. So that's not what I wanted. I wanted 90 degrees. So just undo. And I'll do that again. So I'm going to hold down the Option key. I'm going to click in the middle. And I'm going to select 90 degrees. There we go. And I'm going to click OK. No, I blew it again. See, I'm not thinking clearly here as I'm talking. I can't talk and work at the same time. So I want to make sure that I make a copy. Make sure that it's set to 90 degrees. There we go. So we'll copy it. There we go. So now we have 2. And now what I can do is I can hit Command D, which stands for duplicate. And now I have all 4 of those. So if we look at our finished version here, if we need to rotate these, we can. I think this works pretty nicely. But you can also go ahead and just hold down the Shift key and click all of these. Whoops, gotta make sure that I have the Move tool selected. So I'm going to select them all. I don't want that one selected. So deselect that. Let's just deselect it all. I need to select. I'm going to take this shape and I don't want that one. I want the one that's hidden underneath. So this is one of the things that generally presents a problem. So what I'm going to do is bring up layers, see which one is affected, and just lock it. And now I can select the one beneath it. There we go. Now I can hold down the Shift key and select that one and then that one. Come on. Select this one. Now this one needs to be locked as well. So I'll lock that one. This is where illustrations, again, can be a little bit difficult. So I'll select this one. Once I have those locked, select, locked. Now I can rotate this, and because it's rotated about the center, you can see that I can change this in any configuration I like. Okay, so we're good on that one. We can also, they want us to rotate the bicyclist hat. So what I can do here is if I select it, you'll notice that the whole thing is selected. But if I use the group selection tool, I can select an individual element. And then I can go back to this tool, the Move tool, and I can move over. And if I wanted to simply rotate it from the center, I can, like so. So that's working within a group. And then when I deselect it, and if I select again, notice that the whole group is selected. Okey-doke. So one of the things that they want us to do in here is that we're going to take, see, where am I on? Oh, I got plenty of time here. What they want us to do is they want us to take the cityscape here, and they want us to make a copy of it and put it behind the current one and make sort of a skewed drop shadow for it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit Command C for copy. And then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to go to edit, and I want to say paste. I'll say paste in front. Just paste in place. That will be fine. Right. So it will be directly on top of the preceding one. And now I can go ahead and I can hit Command. And I can take, it doesn't matter which one I'm using. But then I can go ahead and hopefully it's the one that's behind. But now what I can do is I can take the free transform tool, which is this one here. And if I move over the top, you'll notice that it turns into a skew. So if I go ahead and I turn it like so, hold down the shift key and I really distort this, I can skew it. And I can also, if I want, I can move it up like so. Okay, now I picked the one that's in front by mistake. So since they're the same, but I can fix that. It's not a problem. Again, sometimes it's difficult working with other people's artwork to figure out what it is they want. So you'll notice because there are multiple fills, this one turns out to be a little question mark, but if I turn it into black, and then I change the opacity of it, and I can change the opacity from here in the properties panel, or I can change the opacity up here in the options menu. So I'll change it to 20%. Okay, so there we have it. Now I can go ahead and I can bring up layers and see exactly where it's located. Here it is. And now it needs to be behind the other one. I don't want to move it. Let's go ahead and move that below. Now let's see if that changed it. No. There we go. Now it's behind it. Now I can deselect. Now I have that behind it. So I'm good to go there. Okay. So that's where I'm changing that. Another thing that they want us to do is they want us to create artwork down here that looks like the center lane, the broken line of street, down the middle of a street. So we'll start with a rectangle. And I'll go ahead and I'll click and I'll drag. And it uses, I'm not going to worry about the size. And let's go ahead and fill it with, let's fill it with this kind of turquoise color. And then again, to skew it, so it sort of looks like in a faux perspective, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to use the free transform tool, move over this. There we go. And I'll go ahead and I'll skew it across like so. And you can determine how many pixels across you want, that sort of thing. And now what I want to do is I want to make a copy of it. And I'm going to use that duplicate feature again. So I'll go ahead and click and drag, hold down the Option key and the Shift key to make sure that it copies and it's aligned. Like so. Yeah, I think it's pretty close. It's too far. So let me undo. Let's do that again. Click and drag, hold down the Option, hold down, there we go. The Shift key so that it's aligned. And now I let go of the mouse. And now I want to duplicate that. So I just hit Command D and I have my duplicates. Like so. Now, if they all need to be moved or, change the size, I can hold down the Shift key, select all of these, and I can move it to the right, like so. I can, just use my arrows, or if the way you're working on it, so that it looks somewhat centered. Or if I want, remember, I can always use the Align tool. So we can align according to the artboard. And let's see what I have here. I want it to be centered. Let's go ahead, and I don't want it distributed. I'll go ahead and click here. No, I didn't want that. So let's undo. See how they all aligned? I didn't want that. So let's go back. Well, I could use horizontal distribute, and that would work for me. But see what that does to the artboard? That's not what I wanted. But I can go ahead and shrink this down a little bit. And if I want to resize this from the middle, hold down the option key and move it in a little bit. Now it's all centered. No problem. Maybe not exactly the same proportions that they used, but it works pretty well. Okay. And if you want to use a different color, be more specific, or utilize the same colors that they have, you can. One of the last things that they want us to do is we're going to use puppet warp. So puppet warp, how that works. That's found underneath the free transform window here. And it's the one that looks like a little push pin. And I've already pulled it off here, and you see that I have the push pin here. What I want to do is I want to take the scarf on the bicycle rider, and I want to bend it a little bit. So if I select the bicycle rider, let me select the bicycle rider, because it is a group. I just want to affect parts of it and do something a little bit freeform. So if I select puppet warp, by default, it should select the mesh. But what I can do is I can, over here, where it says show mesh, I can also hide the mesh. And you can see that it has these basic little points that we can use to distort or reform the artwork. If I click here and I drag, you'll notice that it bends just a little bit. And that's all they want us to do. If I move over it, you can see that I can also rotate a little bit, like so. So that allows me for a little bit more of a smooth kind of curve. I'll go back to the other. Undoing here. There we go. So it just bent down. One of the things that you should pay attention to with puppet warp, though, is I'll go ahead and I'll select it again. But I want to turn on the mesh, show you what happens. That if I'm not careful and you start to move over these points, notice that it really can distort not just the point or the element that you want to change, but everything attached to it. So in order to avoid that, you have to go back in and you have to add these little anchor points to prevent certain parts from moving. So for example, if I want to make sure that the backpack didn't move, I would have to click here. I would probably have to add another anchor point here, another one here, just to be on the safe side, and then here. And the more I click, the more that you can see that it is not being distorted. And I'll click another one here. And now when I come back up here, let's say I want to click an anchor point here. Now when I move it, notice that it's only moving the scarf, but notice that the hair is moving just a little bit. Okay. So let's go back. I'll leave that, that's fine. So that's pretty much it for today. Let me go ahead and go to view. And I go ahead and I want to fit all just fit all into the window. And we've done some of the basic transformation features, mostly working with artboards. Okay, and remember that you can select artboards from over here in the toolbar. You can also select artboards over here from the artboard panel, where it allows you to rename them and to reorder them. And with an artboard selected, then you can come back over to the properties panel. And let me make sure that this is deselected. And let's select an artboard. Okay. It allows us to, this tells us that this is artboard 2. And that, remember that by default, it gave us pixels, but if I want to change it to inches, I can always switch to inches or any other unit of measurement. So that's another option for us. We can also, let's see, we have these snap features here that I haven't used. So snap to point is turned off. If you want snap to grid, that works for you, or if you want to snap to pixel, you have more options than you'll ever use probably in a lifetime, to be perfectly honest. But it's all there. And again, as I said, there's a lot of redundancy built in, that I can select an artboard from here if I double click on it. Whoops. Okay. If I want to add an artboard from here, I can. If I want to select my artboards from here, then it selects it. I can edit the artboard, but the artboard, when you change the artboard, it doesn't necessarily change the contents. It's just, like a piece of paper, basically, is what you're working with. Okay, and click on here to get us back to the normal mode. I'm going to go ahead and go back to view, and I want to fit all to window so you can see what we have here. Close this panel, and let's see how I did. If I'm pretty much the same as what they have. Let's go ahead and go to view, fit all the window. Oops, wrong one. And there we go. Pretty close. I think for the drop shadow back here, I didn't follow their guidelines precisely. That's okay. We did pretty much everything else. Okay, not exactly like they did it, but pretty darn close. Okay, so that's what you guys need to be working on. And I will review some of this again tomorrow, just a little bit. I'll go over some parts of this. Review it, not in any particular order, but just to cover some elements like the puppet warp or different ways of rotating or resizing, things like that. Okay, and duplicating, whatever, changing the center point or the start point of our rulers. And again, adding rulers here in the properties panel is something that's relatively new to me. I'm just so used to using Command R in Photoshop and Illustrator. It's part of my muscle memory. But if you click on it and turn it off, you can click on it here again and you can turn it back on. And again, you can change the units from here. Again, used to going up to File and going up, Illustrator, and going to Preferences and going to Units. I mean, that would be another way. And right now, notice that it's set to inches. But what if I want to go back to pixels and I click there? Then it goes back to pixels. So I can change it from there, or I can change it from here. I must admit, it is easier to use the Properties panel. Okay, it's just that I'm so accustomed to using these older ways, doing it, the way that they did it many, many years ago, that it's kind of seared into my brain to do it those ways. So that's pretty much it for today. I will end today's lesson. stop recording this and I'll post it on YouTube within about an hour or so. And so I'm going to say goodbye. And remember that your mask assignment is due by the end of the week. I know that I have it listed by the end of Thursday, but actually if you get it in to me by the weekend, we'll be good. So I'm going to go ahead and stop recording and say goodbye. And then I'm going to end today's webinar.